Hello, and welcome to the South Coast Artist Index, where artists, performers, and writers, as well as curators, directors, and supporters, anyone with ties to the creative community, drops by to introduce themselves to you. We'll talk about their beginnings, their vision, their passion, and so much more. The South Coast Artist Index podcast is brought to you in part by Heavenly Spirits, who invites you to celebrate the art of life and creative communities everywhere.
All right, hey. How's it going?
I'm good.
All right. Yeah. This is Jeff Angeley interviewing Christian Camarao for the South Coast Artist Index. Goal of the Artist Index is to interview and document the work of people who are creating in the greater South Coast area and release those podcasts for both, public entertainment and consumption, and also to archive and save the record of what people are doing for future listeners, and those things will be saved at the New Bedford Whaling Museum. So, without further ado, Christian Camarao.
Yes, that's me.
All right. We could do the whole spelling your name out thing.
So it's like the religion, and then it's like the car, with an A-O at the end, with an O at the end. So it's CHRISTIAN CAMARAO.
All right. And so I don't have any restrictions on what I do or what I talk about, but I do have kind of a focus.
Yes.
And the people that I've been interviewing for the Artist Index basically fall under two categories. They're either people who have ties to traditional music, or there are people who have ties to a little bit further out, closer to avant-garde and compositional music. And you do both of those.
Yeah, I'm pretty square, kind of in the middle. I kind of owe the traditional stuff to you, because I really liked banjo music, but I really had only heard it in Sufjan Stevens records, and I was listening, and then after that I started listening to a lot of Pete Seeger, and I was like, it seems like there's a way to play this instrument that's there's a actual technique. I can't just play it like a guitar. And so I got your number, and I called you, and then I realized, this thing's been happening for pretty long time. This whole traditional music thing seems like it's been happening for hundreds if not thousands of years. So I kind of started digging my way back, and then tracing my influences kind of back to their point of origin. So yeah, that's the traditional stuff's all you, all Jeff.
Well, yeah. I'm not sure that. You had banjo before you met me, and
I did, and I liked Pete Seeger a lot, but I guess in my head it was kind of how does it go farther from here?
Yeah. So, we'll get to where you are now. Let's start where you began then. Where would you consider your kind of foundation? Where are you coming from originally musically?
So, my senior year of high school, I took a music theory class. I had never really done music seriously up to that point. I was writing a lot of movie scripts with my friends. We were going out and filming things. We were making fools of ourselves at the Dartmouth Mall. We would wear weird masks and just be idiots. But we also did music reviews. We did and I just loved talking about records, and I got really into indie music, and I fell in love with how albums are made, and I guess I had always wanted to start writing music, so I took a theory class, and I didn't really know how to read music, but I kind of figured out if I just hit random buttons on my computer and in a notation software, I would make these random patterns, and then out of those patterns I could pick stuff that I actually liked. So I started there. I had MuseScore, which is like a free notation software device, and I was in theory, and I could just be like, what would happen if I wrote this song in like 7/8 and I made it in Locrian, because I had just learned what those words were. Like I was just like, it was like, just got all those tools, and then I would just randomly put stuff in. Be like, what would happen if I, just added a bunch of these rhythms in there, and then I would put it in this like ridiculous looking music in front of my friends who were like in marching band and like in orchestra, and they'd be like, "Wow, Christian, this is terrible. why are you doing this? I thought we were friends." But at that time I was like, I was such a weird kid, man. I was like I would like be like in the library at school, and I remember I had a friend who was visiting from college. Like they were at Mass Art, and they came back to visit like their alma mater, and they found me in the library, and they were like, "Christian, what's up?" And I was like, "Oh, hey, dude, like, I'm just listening to Aphex Twin, and I'm drawing maps." I was like making maps of like the coast of Maine. I was like, and like I was really obsessed with like the geography of Maine at that time. So I wrote a record about Maine when I was in high school, and then I kind of just kept on writing records about specific places. And now I'm 23 and I can't stop. I don't know what's wrong with me.
Yeah, that's cool. So you really did start with composition.
Yeah, I did. I didn't really like playing other people's music. I was like, I did jazz band in high school, and it stressed me out a lot. Like,
was that as a guitar player?
Yeah, I was a guitar player. I didn't really play anything else, but like it was interesting. The paths to do music. Like when you're a kid, it kind of feels like you either get in touch with like a teacher that you really love, or you go through like public schools and like you like develop this really like rigid, very disciplined like approach to it, and I definitely was not rigid or disciplined, and I'm still not, but I like would listen to bands like Modest Mouse and the Microphones and stuff, and I was just in love with everything that they were saying. I would watch like documentaries about their tours. I would watch like where it would be like, it was like 19-year-old kids who had just written like the most like genre-defining music I had ever heard. Like packing into a van and stuff. And I was like, I'm gonna try to just copy them until I figure out my own thing.
So did you play guitar before you started using compositional software?
Yeah, I did. And I would write little things too, but I had no way of like recording them or like writing them down. I would like take a phone camera and I would like record myself playing it, or I got like a loop pedal for a birthday, and so like I would record one loop and then I would just record over it until it was like I was using every single note in like a scale, and it was just soup. Like you couldn't make heads or tails of it,
Yeah.
So
what time period is that?
That was when I was like 15 or 16.
So what years are we talking about?
That was 2015, 16.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
And then when did you start making records?
I guess it was kind of like, it was funny because like as soon as I figured out how to write stuff, the next logical progression was like I want to make albums. I wasn't like interested in like releasing singles or anything. I like really liked, I think that's how I conceptualize music, is like long projects, that kind of have they're all variations on like a theme, so as soon as I kind of figured out like this is how I'm going to write songs, this is like what I like to do, I started writing music like December 2016, and I think I released my first record, and my first record came out like August of 2017.
Oh,
so it was pretty close. And then 2 weeks after that, I was like, sure, I'll do another one. I released another one. I like released, they were short. They were both like I think the first one was like 30 minutes and the second one was 20 minutes. But I
What's
like
the first? Is that the Massachusetts?
no, that was Maine.
Maine.
So I had a record called Maine because it's about Maine. It was about Maine. It has the worst album cover of all time, which I feel so bad
That's
about.
a tough competition right there.
It's really bad. It's like so bad. I felt so bad. I like wanted it to look like a postcard, like greetings from, Maine. And I have this my one of my closest friends, this wonderful artist, Ethan Lassie. He's a photographer, and we had this map of Maine, like this old map that we found, and we kind of submerged. We like took a picture, we framed it, and then we submerged it in a Pawnegansett Bay, so it looked like it was like it washed up on the shore. And it was a pretty cool photo. It would have been cool on its own. And then I put this disgusting pink text on the top. It just says, Christian Camarao presents Maine. It's like fluorescent, hot pink. It contrasts so terribly with like the greens and the blues, like the browns of like the beach. And I remember Ethan was like, "Are you sure you want to do this?" And I was like, "Yes." I thought it was like, so I have a lot of artistic regret. It's probably the first one.
So how many complete albums have you made now?
Maine, New Hampshire, Big Dig, Appalachian Fiction. So I'm 4 going on 5.
4 going on 5. And you were just saying they document different places.
Yeah.
It's Maine.
I did Maine, and then I did New Hampshire, and then I had a record about Massachusetts called The Big Dig. There's not a single song on it about the Big Dig. Another wasted opportunity. and then I had
I like that one a lot.
And then in 2020 I released Appalachian Fiction, and then I forgot it. There's Red Planets after that. So.
Is Appalachian Fiction specific to a state, or?
It is. It's about West Virginia.
Okay.
Pretty specifically.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got to go there sometime.
We do. I don't know. I was just kind of like, I wanted to do this thing where I kind of did like a project about each state, which I know is not like the first time anybody's ever said that, but I just really, I love Wikipedia. Was probably the greatest discovery of my childhood. Now, like I'm like 23 and I get home from work and I'm like, I don't know. It's weird. When I was a kid, I would be like, come home and I would play video games. Now I sit, I open up like crack a seltzer water. I like crack my knuckles, sit back in my computer chair, go on Google Maps. Let's find out what's going on in the world. I wonder what Google Street View looks like in, Milwaukee. Like, sure, why not?
Yeah.
But I was like I was looking up a ton of stuff, and it started off as a project about like Chesapeake Bay, kind of that area, like kind of Washington D.C. area, and then it kind of slowly moved westward until it was completely just all the songs were about West Virginia. So there's like stuff about like there's like I did a song about Harper's Ferry, and it's not about like John Brown's raid on Harper's Ferry because I hadn't known about that at the time. It was like, wouldn't it be cool to take a train there? And then I did there's songs about like Mothman, and there's Project Greek Island, which is like the secret congressional bunker underneath the Greenbrier Hotel. So that one, yeah.
I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, that's the name of it. Yeah, Project Greek Island is like
I didn't know what that was about.
So yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Did you visit West Virginia?
I did. I went right before COVID happened. No, sorry, it was a year before that. It was 2019. So it was like December of 2019. We kind of went through Monongahela, like that area. We never really pushed westward, but we kind of went from like Petersburg to Harper's Ferry, and we spent like a couple nights like in that area. So it was nice. Yeah.
I don't know where's Petersburg?
Petersburg is like kind of once you pass like Shenandoah, like in Virginia, like once you get to like eastern West Virginia, it's right there. It's near Seneca. Oh wait, it's like about an hour away from Seneca Rocks.
I don't know that either.
It's like It's just cool rocks.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know like 3 places in West Virginia.
Yeah.
Well, maybe 4. And they're all because of people that I know or places that
Yeah.
I've played, you know. I actually do know the Greenbrier, though.
Greenbrier's cool. I would.
And Alan, who we just played with, he lives in the town that the Greenbrier
Yeah.
is in.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So that record, that is your most recent completed record,
Yeah.
Appalachian Fiction.
It's the most it's the most complete one. I think it's my best one so far. You know, it's like feels like an actual record. You know,
And it has the most success so far.
Yeah, I lucked out. I had a TikTok with some music go viral, go semi-viral as far as TikTok is concerned, and people started listening to it, and eventually it kind of took on a life of its own, and I didn't have to like pester people to like listen to. You know, I think we've talked about this before.
Yeah, that's huge.
It's the hardest thing, you know, to like convince, like to, as an artist, where you're usually so like self-contained. If you're good at it, you're usually humble, you know, like, and it's really hard to like go out and reach out to people and be like, you should listen to this thing. So like, to me, that was the nicest thing, was like just kind of to have your art exist as your art and not feel like you have to dress it up in all these different ways and convince people and like, you know, drag them to listen to it. Like, it's a nice feeling that, you know, obviously streaming has its problems, but, you know, I wouldn't have people listening to my music if it wasn't for like kind of those like algorithmic playlists where it's like, Spotify realized like, oh, this is kind of like music. This kind of sounds like music. Maybe people would like this, you know? So it's nice that, you know, getting messages from people who just randomly stumbled across it.
Do you dislike the streaming thing?
I think that streaming is like good, like a kind of a net positive in a lot of ways. Like,
I agree with you.
Because, you know, there's like no way that I could conceivably have ever made any semblance of like a career doing this if it wasn't for that, you know? Like, it's not, and it kind of, I feel like in a lot of ways it kind of democratizes like the process of art making, right? Like, it's not like we're gluing, like, we're not like, you know, we're not burning our music onto CDs and then passing them out. Like, it exists on the same platform as like, you know, the multi-billion dollar artists, you know, like my record has the same like presentation, the same, you know, ability to be shared as like Drake, right? Like the biggest artist in the world. Like, it shows up, the picture's the same. It's not like his picture is blown up bigger than me, you know? It's there's like, obviously, like, there's questions you can ask about like the efficacy of like, you know, I'm the person that's putting this content out into the world, you know, like I'm making the things for this website, you know, and the piece of the pie I get is like significantly smaller than like a Spotify like executive, right? But you know, in the long run, like, I think that the fact that anybody can put stuff on that like legit website streaming app is a good thing. Like, I had records on Spotify when I was 17 years old, you know, like, it was kind of a crazy thing for me to be like, oh, I can just put it on the place where I listen to all of my music. I don't have to like upload it to YouTube and then people like, you know, put it like their phones facing down like in the car, so that way it doesn't like, you know, they're not going to accidentally click on like a tutorial on how to make horchata or something while they're listening to my music. They're not going to get like, it's like, you know.
Yeah, no, so. I think you see the case made by musicians frequently for why it's not a good thing.
Yeah.
And it's not a popular position to take that it is a good thing. But
yeah.
I think that if you were to list out the pros and cons, that at very least we can admit that there are pros.
Yeah, I think it's like, we can always advocate for like better things. We can always advocate like for more substantial change, and like I'll certainly advocate, like that things are always fairer. I'll always advocate on the side of the artist, but like there is some I think the internet has just done this in a lot of ways in general, where it's like like everything is just presented in front of you to consume, and like it's a lot easier to find things for better and for worse, but
everybody expects everything free. You know?
Right, exactly.
And the platforms probably have top-heavy pay structures, and everybody's seen the graphics that show how little they pay, but
right,
they pay something.
They pay something which is like more than I would get, I guess, if there would be no record executive that's like, this guy making ambient minimalist folk music is going to be the next Selena Gomez,
right?
So they take what they can get,
Yeah. No, and being able to be heard is huge.
Totally.
So
yeah.
So and you've released a single so far from what's upcoming.
The new record, yeah. It's kind of so the next record is kind of a sequel record to Appalachian Fiction. It's called Appalachian Horror, and I guess I was thinking about. It started when COVID started. It was like a terrible time. It still is a terrible time. It was like, I think, seeing how unfairly groups of people were treated, while like other people were like kind of pressed about how hard it was that they couldn't see their friends. It really struck a chord with me. It was like I lost my job. I lost both my jobs. I was like putting myself through college at the time. I had to but I was kind of lucky. I mean, in a lot of ways, okay, well, I lost both my jobs, and like I had to, I was living at home, but the people I was working with at I worked at Pizza Hut, they lost their jobs and they had kids, and they also had because they were working at Pizza Hut, my managers were younger than me. They were 19 years old. They couldn't go back to school. They didn't have places to live, and they were just kind of expected in the middle of this pandemic, this historic pandemic, to just kind of survive. And I don't know, it just kind of when I think about genre fiction, when I think about what would Appalachian Fiction, what is that? Okay, if I was to write music that sounded like that, what would it sound like? Well, that's that last record. It's whimsical, but it's grounded. The mountains themselves, that mountain, the Appalachian mountain range, it's the oldest mountain range in the world, right? It's been beaten and weathered by time, and the music reflects. At least I hope it does. It's a little bit out of tune. It's a little bit it's organic. It's there's not everything there. I recorded in a practice room at UMass. I was get people to do it just 15 minutes between classes. And I guess when I think about what would Appalachian horror exist as a subgenre, I think a lot of people, if you ask that, they would be it would be Mothman. We have these things already, right? We have there's entire cryptozoology, the Flatwoods Monster, the Mothman. These are things that people are associate. They think it's a specific flavor of horror, But I think that after doing so much reading, and I think being close to these issues, I think that Appalachian horror as a subgenre is kind of it's how it feels to be exploited at work, to feel to basically be subject to body horror of and self-mutilation, and whether that's 100 years ago, going into a mine and never coming back out, or your lungs rotting to 100 years in the present, to being so overworked that like you mutilate yourself at work, like you just literally cannot function, you get into a car accident, so that's what the new record's about. Like it's not really like, wouldn't it be crazy if there was a guy in the woods that looked weird? It's more
it's interesting. I kind of forget about some of those truths because I have good friends in West Virginia, and I've played shows there. And
yeah,
I mean, I know like all the statistics tell you it's like the poorest place.
Yeah,
in the country.
right.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
like it's West Virginia and Mississippi every single time that those statistics come down. But then like when I'm talking to Alan or whatever,
Yeah.
it's amazing how many people he knows that are like, just stuck in this same dead end rut of like meth and heroin. You know? And like, or like other, physical maladies that come from hard physical work.
Yeah.
Like your whole life,
Right.
I mean, including Alan himself. Alan has all kinds of things that he deals with. So yeah, we have a lot to be grateful for.
Yeah. Well, and
Where
like,
we are, I guess.
Obviously, I wasn't born in West Virginia. I'm from here. I'm from the southern coast of Massachusetts, but my dad, he's worked in a steel mill for basically as long as I've been able to spell. And before that, he was like a fisherman on a fishing boat, and my grandfather before him was a fisherman. My dad's a big union guy, like he's the grievance chair for his union, so he was always kind of in touch with like the people that were working at like the ATI plants and in Ohio and Pennsylvania and West Virginia, like it's a shared struggle, and it's incredible. You read about the history of that area, about like, about the Battle of Mount Blair and the strikes, like they were these like multi-ethnic coalitions of people that were like advocating on behalf of each other and with each other for a better future, and obviously, like the conditions are terrible, like like they've been exploited by corporations and like there's like Teflon in the rivers and, the mountains are being decapitated but like there's still, just living in life today, no matter wherever you are, like there's these kind of like profound horrors that are happening every single day that we kind of just have to accept. But there's also, like profound beauty in like the things that we do every single day. Like, I'm a school teacher, and so I see that, these kids that, are kind of have everything working against them, but like, just because the deck is stacked against them, like they're the most resilient, group of people. Like there's still so much beauty in every aspect of their lives, and like kind of teasing that out of people. I think, and to bring it back to the music, even though the record's called Appalachian Horror, it's still, I think it's punctuated more by beautiful moments than by moments of like anxiety or stress. Like it's, I hope that people come away from it like thinking that even though like even though these things are true, that there's still like there's still beauty, there's still like life is worth living,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. So I think your teaching work's really relevant too. We're talking about music, and you are a music teacher.
Yeah.
So, you teach in New Bedford?
Yes. Yeah. So I'm the chorus general and band teacher at Hathaway School, and I'm the band teacher at Winslow, which is great. I love my job so much. I feel really grateful that I get to do what I do, and like, it's just nice being a part of like kids' lives in like a positive way, and to be able to see them grow and to be able to like kind of convince them that what they're doing is worth doing, even if they might not see it in the moment. We just finished our winter concerts And it's my first year doing that, and I feel like I saw like light bulbs go off. You know, they were like, wow, like people saw me play and they liked it, and I can just keep doing this. I don't have, you know, it doesn't have to be the only thing I do, but I can just keep doing this until I'm in high school, and imagine how much better I'll be in high school. You know, it's like so cool to be at the start of that, you know.
Yeah.
It's nice.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you do any compositional work with the kids?
I do. I have this one lesson where we do a unit on jazz, and we build scales out of Jenga towers. So I'll label the notes. I'll label on the sticks, you know, C through, you know, or A through G, and then I'll tell the kids to build a tower. I'll tell them to build me a C scale. So they need to build a tower that starts on C and goes all the way up to C. You know, so they need to keep in mind like that it repeats, you know, and like the fact that the notes go in order and stuff. And then they'll build it, and if it falls down, they have to start it again. They'll build it, and they like it. You know, I also do I do games where we'll like, for the older grades, you know, I like to keep them moving, because like if they stay stagnant, then they'll get bored. But I have hula hoops on the ground, and then I have the kids have boom whackers with a single note. So I have...
What's a boom whacker?
It's a tube of plastic that's cut to a certain length. So when you hit it on your hand, it'll play a note. So like it'll have, you know, you'll have like A through G. They'll all be different colors and they'll all be different lengths. So if you hit like a red boom whacker, it'll play the note C. So
similar to a handbell?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, basically the same thing. And so I have the kids run, you know, I have this kind of like obstacle course of hula hoops where they'll need to, you know, it'll be like arranged in a scale. So they'll have, you know, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And the kids will like kind of run up and down. And while they're doing that, they'll need, the kids in the audience will need to hit the right boom whacker when they're moving. So they get to see like how a scale actually works, you know, like how when this kid moves up there, the notes move up, and when they move down, the notes move down. And then when they start leaping from note to note, they start to compose their own melodies. So like I start off with doing really fundamental stuff, and then we do lessons on form. So for me, I love it when the kids get to make things, when they get to like have compositions that they're proud of. And I'm thankful that, you know, like I'm teaching now, so I have access to things like band labs. So fifth graders spend basically the second half of the year composing their own albums. You know, they get to write in this DAW that's really super intuitive for kids. And by that point, you know, they've already learned everything about form. They know how to write songs that have like an A section, a B section, and an A section. They know what scales are. And they can also break those rules too, you know, in the interest of like, I think that this sounds cool. Okay, great. Yeah, that's good.
So does that, I don't know that software or technology, is that document things like with like MIDI voices or something like that?
Yeah, it does. It documents them with MIDI voices. So the kids are really kind of painting like with the things that they see, but they do have, you know, like it's intuitive. They know how to, by that point, they know how to read music. They know how to read the notes on the staff, and they know what rhythms are because we've been practicing them for a long time. But like, I personally find that even though, you know, like I know how to do this, it's pretty liberating to just be like, what happens if I just draw up and down? You know? Yeah. It's nice when the kids have those moments too, where they just like do something completely by accident and they're like, that actually sounds really cool. Those are my favorite classes to teach. You know, I really love, like, it feels rewarding for the kids. You know, I think they get to see like why we've been singing solfege, why we've been practicing rhythms and stuff, because you know, they can just kind of take it and run from there. So yeah, I like doing composition stuff with the kids. I hope that as time progresses, like I find ways to like do it with even younger grades, you know. Like,
yeah, that's super cool. Yeah, I find that there's such a compulsion to write like really early on.
Yeah.
You know, like with my with my children and with other children that I've worked with, they even like if they're taking melodies that they know, wanting to put their own set of words to it, to like what's happening right now, you know what I mean? Like kind of making things relevant to them.
Yeah. I actually, this was such a better example than literally everything I just said.
I actually think that everything you just said was really amazing.
So we did a chorus, we did our winter concert, and for fourth graders, they spend their first unit is like American music, you know. So we did American folk music. So I taught them the song, you know, Bile and Cabbage Down. Mm-hmm. They learned the rhythm of it. Like we transcribed the rhythm together. So, you know, like we use rhythm syllables, but it's, you know, t t t t ta ta. Mm-hmm. And then I had them write their own verses because, you know, folk's like a tradition, you add to it. So they would sing the chorus, and then they would write their own verses. And some of the kids, you know, they wrote verses that were like really beautiful, you know, especially for fourth graders. Like, and then we had them sing that at the winter concert, you know, like it was some really profound stuff. One kid wrote like, I spy caterpillars like sitting on a tree. He will look very, very beautiful in a couple of months. Like, it's just lovely, you know, like, like the kids feel really special. Like, you know, the fact that not only the fact that they got to write it, but the fact that like, I think like an adult in their life was like, this is good enough to like perform in front of a crowd. And just to realize awesome. That like music, you know, in a lot of ways is easier than I think a lot of people make it out to be. Yes. You know, like anybody can do it. Like if I can do it, then anybody can do it, you know? Like, so yeah, like having those kids be like, something I wrote was, you know, performed and conducted by an ensemble. That's cool, you know?
Yeah, that's really fantastic. I think that's huge. Like, I feel like, that sounds nothing like the music education I received when I was in school.
Me neither. You know, like, I don't remember anything from my music class. Like, I remember singing and then being told I wasn't very good at it. And then kind of internalizing that, you know, being like,
such a weird concept.
Yeah.
I can't tell you, I mean, this is not an interview about me, but I can't tell you how many people have expressed to me over the course of the last few decades something to the effect of, you know, I was told that I couldn't do this, or that I wasn't good at it, or that I wasn't a good singer, or even weirder, like people who are from families with multiple siblings who are like, well, I was the athletic one, my sister was the musical one, or something like that. Like as though there could only be one.
You can only be one thing.
Yeah. That concept, I don't know how we do away with that. Do you have any ideas on that?
I think I don't know. I mean, I think in a lot of ways I struggle. I think we all probably struggle with that voice in our own heads, like telling us we can't do things. For a long time, like I was like, it's interesting, you know. I was like, I'm only a guitar player. Every time I tried to pick up another instrument, it would be like my brain, even if I was like doing it totally fine, I would give up at some point because I was like, I'm just not this, you know. Like I think people are kind of embarrassed to start off bad at something in the privacy of their own home, or like even with like the help of like a teacher whose only interest is that they get better, you know. I mean, like I know that you're not either. Like when we get students, we're not like we're not judging, like in our head we're not like, wow, you're actually pretty bad at this, you know. Like I wish that you came to music lessons.
That's scary
already
thing is
completely.
That those teachers exist. So
they do.
And they destroy kids. They destroy kids' interest in music for life.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I had teachers like that made me feel bad as like a 10-year-old, you know, when like you don't even know how to like do math yet, you know, like you don't know like how to like long divide. You're learning these things, these like, you know, these like, of course, like, you know, when your job is music, you know, like the things that are important to you are probably not going to be as important to a 10-year-old. Like you have to lead them, you have to like you have to have them draw their own conclusions, you know. So I think it's like just it's going to take enough people kind of realizing like, I didn't like being treated that way in school. I don't think I'm going to treat other people the same way, instead of like, well, I was treated that way, and I turned out pretty okay. So, you know, I guess this is just how it works. This is, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. It's craziness.
Yeah.
I think that there's a, well, let me ask you this as a question. Do you think that there's a problem with the idea that professional music is the only music?
Yeah, totally. Totally. Because, like, the most liberating thing, I think, in my life recently, like, has been being more excited for, like, the music that my friends are making than, like, you know, a record that's being, like, heavily promoted by, like, a record company. And I just feel like there are so many, like, there's just an infinite definition of, like, amount of definitions of, like, what professional music is, that, like, if you try to be the arbiter of what is and what isn't professional music, and you concern yourself with whether or not you should be pursuing it or listening to it, I mean, like, you know, then what would be the point of listening to, like, any record that wasn't made by, like, the London Symphony Orchestra, you know, like, and also just to kind of realize, like, you know, this is a little bit further out there. Obviously, you know, when I'm writing music, I'm like, you know, I would generally like to keep things in tune, but sometimes, you know, if something falls a little bit flat, or like if, you know, like something, if there's a voice crack, or, you know, crack on an instrument, you know, like saxophone squeaks, whatever, like realizing that all we are doing is manipulating air, and that, like, you know, we're following rules that were established thousands of years ago that we all generally agree upon, but, like, aren't binding in any way, you know, like, nobody signed a contract, like, that we're gonna all use equal temperament, and that, like, if you hear a sound that you like, you know, that you should probably just follow your gut, you know. And even further, you know, like, I think now, for me, like, I have this kind of gut test where, like, before I hand off songs to other people, I have to be convinced of them. And not in a way where, like, I'm a perfectionist. I think it's just, like, you know, if you're going to put art into the world, I think that, like, you need to feel, you know, you need to be convinced, like that you like it, you know? Well, actually, I shouldn't say you need to, but for me, that's been helpful, right? Like, instead of, like, passing off some music that I've made that is, like, really technically competent, right? Like, where it's like the voices are all right, you know, like everything's where it should be. It's fine in the mix, you know. Putting that stuff out, you know, like my last single, like, you know, I put it out. I'm probably gonna take it down, like, and just retool it, because, like, you know, I put it out. Okay, everything's technically there. It's all technically right, but it doesn't sit with me. It doesn't. It doesn't like it. Like, it doesn't. It doesn't sound like something I would do. Because I think I, you know, passed it off to people. I was like, can you fix this for me? You know, I feel like I needed to have been convinced of it, convinced of what I was doing before I did that. You know, I can't wait for people to tell me, like, yeah, man, this sounds good. Like, it's almost like I shouldn't need to ask that question. I should just kind of know.
That's a I think that's there's so many directions I want to go. Everything you just said, there's, like, so many things I want to talk about. I think that's a problem of a socially connected digital world too.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to open up to the idea of, well, two different directions to go with the idea of noises that are not culturally accepted as in.
Yeah.
You know, starting with, like, something as simple as tuning, which, you know, to me, like, I read things that are slightly out of tune as sounding real, which is a really interesting thing, like, in a digital world where it's possible to be perfect with a computer's help, that the only things that sound real anymore are the things that actually contain that
imperfection,
that layer of error.
Yeah.
You know, how, if you even want to call it that, the humanness.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I know. I remember feeling, like, weird and ostracized, like, when I would listen to records that, you know, or like this song Between Your Ear and the Other Ear by The Microphones, like, on the record It Was Hot, We Stayed in the Water. It's completely composed of this guitar that it's out of tune, and is like being whacked with like sounds like a tree branch, and none of the vocals are really in tune. And it like spoke to me so much more. It speaks to me so profoundly. Like that song, I love that song. Like to me, like that is got to be like one of the defining songs of not my career. Like I didn't write it, but it was like like that song really like inspired me to make music. And I went to music school. I did a classical guitar degree, and I don't regret it. Like I learned a lot. I think it's good to just learn things, but I've never been moved by like a piece of music that I heard at school in the same way that song moved me, and like, well, the other stuff, the stuff I was listening to school, like it's in tune. It's got a lot of notes moving around, and not to say that none of it's moving, none of it spoke to me, but like, I just felt like if I kind of presented it to any of my professors or any of my peers, they would be like, why are you, it's wrong, and almost being like embarrassed of like the music that I really liked, and kind of trying to hide that in my own music too, like fighting against these artistic urges. But
yeah, and so expanding on that, so like there's a certain sense of real humanness to noise, but there's something else to noise, like kind of what you're talking about here, like that goes beyond just out of tune, right? We're talking about things that are like, I mean, it's weird because like even the terminology that we use to describe them, like they're out sounds, you know what I mean? Like, it makes it sound like they're wrong to begin with, but like you use those elements, I hear those elements and things that you make. Can you, I don't know, I don't want to ask too pointed of a question because I don't want to like direct what you're saying, but like maybe just like speaking to that palette, like what does that palette do for you?
It provides like a rawness. It's like it like assures me that the music is real, and that like the edges haven't been like like it hasn't been all like hammered out to like uniformly like to conform. I struggled for like a long time, I tried to get like a bunch of choral singers together when we did live rehearsals. I loved the way it sounded because it was real, like, like things were a little bit flat, things were like, but it felt like I was all encompassed in this sound. And when we went into the studio, I was like, I really wanted to do it live. I was like, whatever it takes, 7 hours, but I'm also like, I don't have as much of a backbone as I think I would like to, like they were like, we should probably do it track by track. And I was like hesitant, but I was like, sure. And I think that ruined it. Like, I really do, because it was like, I was, they just tuned everything up, and it was like suddenly that thing that I wanted, which was like real people like in a room making this thing that felt like authentic, kind of just became like an approximation of it, or like a representation of it, like I've when I think about my favorite movies, like the performances are really real, like the people are stumbling over their words, like it's not like people have their lines memorized and they're just reciting them, be it in like a happy or a sad voice. It's like the actors have the liberty to not just improvise, but also to kind of stumble over themselves and make mistakes, because that makes it more real, that makes it more real. And like I like when I make music, I want it to feel like an actual like human being like made it, like that it could exist in a space somewhere, and that it wasn't some like superhuman feat of like engineering and technology, like I think what I like about like like the way that Appalachian fiction is produced is like it was all track by track, and it was all like it was all like I would call people randomly into like a different practice room in like UMass Dartmouth and be like, can you play like for 15 minutes? Like, I know you have class, like, but just 10 minutes. And so I get these like really like right off the bat performances where it's like people are like messing up and stumbling. But I mean, like, sometimes the mistakes they would make would sound better than anything I could ever notate, you know? And it also sounded real. Like, it sounded like people actually playing instruments. And like, I think there's some aspect of like struggling to play a part that can imbue it with emotion, you know? Like, when you hear someone like playing the guitar and they're like really hitting the strings, and like, it's not just a volume thing. It's not just like the tone and the texture. I feel like you can actually feel like those emotions come through, and that's something you kind of lose when you put it through like a MIDI, you know?
Yeah. So. Yeah. Well, for what it's worth, I like the track that you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I do like the track. You don't need me to tell you that, but I hear your pain with it, but I do like it.
Thank you. Yeah. I think another thing too, you know, to kind of circle back to the idea that like people feel like they need permission to do things, or like, you know, it's like I'm the athletic one. I've never been the musical one. I feel like, you know, as much as I want to be like, I've crested this large hill in myself, and now I let myself be creative, you know, even, you know, personally, like even when you're creating something, like I feel like there is kind of like I'm worried about this like third person omniscient narrator to be like, Christian was in his bedroom and he was writing really terrible music, you know, like, but that process of iteration and like thinking on things and being like, that actually sucks. Like I'm going to go back and rewrite that. You know, if it wasn't for that last track I put out, I don't think I would have come to that realization, you know, like if like I can write something that's really bad and then sit on it for a little bit and then make changes to it that make it sound better. You know, like it's okay to make. The worst thing in the world is not making bad art, you know. So.
Yeah. I think that whole idea of like a narrator in your head commenting on your work all the time, I feel like we all have like, sometimes it's even worse if you get comments that it's good, you know?
I know, yeah.
It's this kind of weird feedback thing that we're hungry for because of social media, where we want people to look at things or give things some thumbs up, and it can influence the things that you create. Like, even if it's positive feedback, I feel like sometimes, like, you know, if people really latch on to something, you're like, oh, you know, maybe I need more of that element in what I'm doing. And it's like, then you're not following the path of the vision that you have in front of you. You're following the path of the vision that is
other people have
viable. And it's interesting because I think, you know, that circles back around to this idea of commercial viability, which is weird. Like, I have this kind of like unpopular position on this, but like, this is where like the Spotify thing is interesting because like, it's true that as far as commercial viability goes, there are problems. Yeah. But then it's also true that a lot of the things that I listen to, a lot of the things that you're listening to, a lot of the things that we're making, a lot of the things that we're interested in are really not designed to be commercially viable.
Totally.
And there's like maybe like some infinitesimally small percentage of people who do those kind of things and like hit pay dirt, but it's not why you do it, you know? Yeah. And having that influence of the commercial is almost a danger to it.
Totally. Well, yeah, I think a big factor for me was when I had those like TikToks kind of have success. I was like, feel like I there was like the part of my brain that was making art was like quiet for a while, and I was just kind of like, you know, I'm gonna hustle to try to get as many people to listen to my music and get excited about my music as possible. And you know, like you have these things that like do well, and you know, I think these platforms kind of make their living by making you feel like the most important person in the entire world for like a couple of minutes, you know. But like, I think now that I'm at a place where it's like, okay, like the limited success I've had on these platforms has not materially impacted my life like in any substantial way. You know what I mean? Like emotionally, it's pretty like it's fulfilling to be like, there's people out there that are listening, there's like that are reading to me. That's great. And I think it's one of those things where, I kind of realized what I need, like what I get, what brings me joy out of this. And I think it's like, it's engineering like experiences that people are going to remember, like these kind of, these moments that people remember as iconic. And it's not so much that I need to like, make it my day job, as long as there are people listening to it. I think realizing like, oh my gosh, there will never be a way like to make this my day job just by streaming. Like there will never, like you would need, even like if I had like 10 times the monthly listeners I had right now, I would need to be pretty like, pretty frugal, and that's not with touring, and that's not with selling merch, but like I guess just kind of like that sense of like, oh man, like I don't know, it's almost liberating, to be like, okay, like I have a job that I love and I also get to do this. Like I get to have my cake and eat it too. Yeah. Like I don't have to really choose between one or the other.
Yeah, no, I think that's really huge. It's allowing yourself to not think of it as a job is big.
Yeah.
I'm similar to you in that I have a job in music, and then I have my more abstract creativity, the things that I want to make.
Yeah.
And I keep them separate on purpose.
Yeah.
I think that there's I don't know how people do it, but I guess I don't have to worry about it so much.
Yeah.
When people are actually making their job at the creative things, because I would imagine that the pull of those voices to do things that are outside of what you had planned on only get louder.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's also like when I put the song out, like they were like, I got feedback from people that was like, it's pretty good. I just wish that you cut out every single part of the song that wasn't what I originally heard. Yeah. That like I wish you only kept the 10-second clip that was on, that I heard on TikTok and shared because it resonated with me. Like I think once you realize that like the promotional cycles that like musicians get encouraged to participate in, like it's the Venn diagram of like people that like are going to engage with that content on social media and be like, this is funny and I relate to this and like this kind of speaks to me as like as a person, and the people that are actually going to listen to the record all the way through and like kind of engage with it in the way that I think we hope that they will.
Yeah. Is
like super small.
Yeah.
It's super tiny. Like that's kind of freeing because like once you realize that like people aren't necessarily like when people like when you have a TikTok blow up and gets like 100,000 likes and like and all of a sudden you don't have like 500,000 people listening to your music. There's like a bit of a crisis where it's like, am I writing really terrible music? Like, did they go and listen to it for like 10 seconds and they were like, not really for me? It's like, no, they were never interested to begin with.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, this has been really fun. Let's take it out with a couple of things. So you have 4 records. They're available everywhere.
Everywhere.
Stream.
Yeah.
And what's next? You said you got a new album coming out?
Yeah.
How about some details on that?
I have a new record coming out. Sorry. I have a new record coming out sometime in 2023. I'm estimating that it'll... Sorry. I have a new record coming out sometime in 2023. I'm estimating that it'll probably be like end of the summer, August. And I have a release show coming up sometime in July for that record. So I hope that if you liked this interview, you'll consider coming out. And my name is Christian Camarao. You can find, just like Jeff said, you can find my stuff online, and you can also email me or message me on Instagram, and I usually respond after 5 business days. So
Cool. Thank you, man.
Thank you so much for having me, Jeff.
It was fun.
We'll see you next week for another episode of the South Coast Artist Index podcast. To learn more about the South Coast Artist Index, visit theartistindex.com. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.